Hey guys, it's King What If here, and I'm back with another video. But before we start this, I'd like to announce two things. First off, thank you for getting me to 100 subscribers. I really appreciate it. I didn't think I was going to last that long since there was a time where I was stuck at 20 subscribers. I was honestly gonna give up, but seeing that I got to 100 subscribers, I do want to post because obviously 100 people love my stuff, and that's enough for me, I guess. Now, alongside with that, I'll be doing a $10 gift card giveaway. Now, now write down what you want, as long as it can be a gift card for $10. $10 Xbox, PSN, Google Play, any $10 gift card, as long as it's $10 or under. You get it? So yeah, I'm doing a giveaway to basically just like, if you wanna win, just subscribe, like. In fact, you know what? Don't subscribe, cause I would love you to subscribe, but I kind of want the giveaway to be for the people who were subscribed to my channel before, like 100s. But still subscribe if you want, like, and then comment your favorite video. And also, I'm doing another sort of contest. If you can answer the question, whoever can answer this question, how did I used to start my videos? I'll make them their own personal what if. Anyway, yeah. But let's get started now. This is my 100K subscriber special. Now, hold up. Let me just turn down my brightness a little. Okay, my brightness has been turned down. This is what if Deku had a water quirk. Now, this is actually my own idea. Now, his water quirk will be my own idea. I kind of found this cool and such, so I'm actually kind of excited for this. So let's start this what if. We start off this what if. Now, things are going to be a little different. Things in this version will be moved forward, but they will still be at a halt. What I mean is, some events will happen later, okay? Some of the events will just happen later, but they will still happen. This is 6 months before the UA entrance exam, not 10 anymore, 6. Izuku Midoriya is quirkless. He realizes that being quirkless, he's not going to have a chance to get into UA. But maybe if he trains hard enough, he could still get in. Even if he can't get into UA, he could get into a different hero school, can't he? So, every day after school, Izuku cleans the beach. One night, while cleaning the beach, it started to rain and thunder and lightning. Now, the beach that the beach that Midoriya was cleaning, Adehiko Beach. Now, I'm gonna change some history. A company a company that messed around with some radiation and radioactive products used to be there. They moved out because of the company was shut down because of safety hazards and health control and stuff, and the Public Safety Commission deemed it a threat and unfit. So they shut down. Unfortunately, they didn't move all their stuff. Now, there has been some canisters of chemicals that were never properly disposed of. Now these canisters have been slowly building up in this tank, waiting for the tank to release. And today's that day. The chemicals released flowing into the water. As Midoriya was on top of some rubble. Now, if you want to know how it is, basically the building isn't on a Dega beach. It's sort of like maybe 150 meters away from a Dega beach, but the chemicals are just flowing. Okay, to this. No, it's like 100 meters away, so it's not that close. So the chemicals would be flowing. Now, It'd be a thunderstorm, and Midoriya would decide to go home for the night. Lifting the trash from the top and moving it to the bottom, since that was the safest way. While there, Midoriya was about to go down, but he'd be stopped. As he'd look at the ocean or the sea, I don't know. I mean, it's a beach. If it's really a beach, then it's an ocean. He'd be looking at the ocean. While looking at the ocean, he'd think to himself, how's that? Wow, like the ocean is glowing, 'cause it's like glowing blue. If you watch Black Clover, it's basically like Rill's hair. If you know who Rill is, he's the captain of the Aqua Dare, and his hair looks like it's glowing all the time, but it's really not. Basically, it'd be glowing with that color, which should be baby blue, I think. As this would be going on, Midoriya would say he should get down. He'd try to take a picture of it with his phone before getting down, as lightning would strike his phone. Striking his phone, Midoriya would immediately drop the phone, but something would still happen. Now, his phone is metal, so think about it, Midoriya's really high, he's lifting up his phone, metal phone. Midoriya wouldn't really get hurt, but Midoriya wouldn't get hurt, but he would end up losing his balance while, like, in shock as he would throw his phone. He would trip, falling into the water. Now, obviously, Midoriya can swim. Midoriya would swim up. While Midoriya would have a hard time, like, moving as the water was so thick because of the chemicals. Midoriya's eyes, he could barely see anything. His eyes were starting to hurt again because of the chemicals. He'd swim up. As he was about to swim on land, lightning would strike him right in the back of the head. Midoriya would lose consciousness, fading into the water. Midoriya would realize what had happened. He'd accidentally breathed water. Midoriya would start to drown as blood would come out of his nose, ears, as basically his skin would just start turning blue, and he'd scream as he would then pass out, as he would kind of see his finger turning transparent. The next morning, the tides are sort of strong, blowing on the beach. As Sorry for the pause. If you saw that image, that's just for something that's upcoming. Try to pause the screen at the right time. Okay, I'm back again. Anyway, meanwhile, after that, as everything would be normal, water would start to splash on the beach. As water would start to splash on the beach, like a small puddle of water would move on the beach. As the small puddle would see his phone, Midoriya would be the small puddle. Midoriya would see his phone. As he'd see his phone, he'd sort of reach out for it, creating a small, like, water-like hand. As the water hand would, like, dissipate, as the water hand would dissipate, it turned into water falling on the beach. This is bad, because, like, this is mud. Like, if you kind of think about it, Sandman's weakness was water, and Midoriya's weakness would be sand. Would Midoriya's weakness be sand, or would he just, like, turn brown? Anyway, as this would happen, Midoriya would start to think, where was he? He'd see that he was at Adegata Beach. For some reason, he could see all around him. Midoriya was freaking out. He'd be freaking out. He'd get a call from his mom on his cell phone. Now, if you're wondering how Midoriya's cell phone is still working after being struck by lightning, well, let's look at the things. This is an advanced civilization due to quirks. I'm pretty sure in a civilization where they have holograms and they have, like, Titan-sized robots. I'm pretty sure if they can make a waterproof phone, they can make an electric-proof phone. Okay, so they just used an electric, like, free metal. Like, that's probably the same as fireproof or waterproof in My Hero Academia. Deku was just startled, and he was blinded too. Because if, fun fact, this will save your life. Two things: if you're walking in like a thundery night and your hair starts to stand on, and your hair starts to like stand on end, you're about to get struck by lightning. Two, if lightning strikes you directly right in front of your face, you will go blind. So Midoriya was blinded necessarily. I forgot to mention that part. But for some reason he can see now. So everything was dark. And now he can see around him. Midoriya would see, he would start freaking out saying he was made out of water. Midoriya would see his phone. It'd be Inko. Midoriya would say, I'm okay. I'm okay. He'd say he needed to grab the phone. He'd go to grab the phone. He tried twice, but his hand would keep dissipating into water. Midoriya would really focus. He'd stretch his hand out, solidifying the water, but small drops of water would keep dropping. He'd grab his phone. He would try to pick it up, but by touching the phone, his thumb would, like, destroy. Midoriya would start to get up. He'd get himself up, picking himself with water, as he would kind of fall down into the ocean. He'd get up again, as water would start to come around him. Water would sort of like surround him, creating like the way he looks, his design, but out of complete water. Midoriya would he'd stand up. Midoriya would try to answer the phone. It wouldn't work. Midoriya would just decide to not answer the phone. He'd throw his phone on the beach, and he would try to put on his book bag, but his book bag would just go right through him. Midoriya would settle down. He'd think what happened to him. He'd remember last night. He'd say it had to be something due to the water. Midoriya would think to himself, I can control this. I can do it. As he'd start to think this to himself, he'd like close his fists. He could sort of feel his fist closing. He'd pick up his book bag and put it on him. This time his book bag wouldn't fall. He'd pick up his notebook, his phone. He'd grab a paper bag and fill it with some water. Like, I don't know, a water bottle, paper bag. He'd fill it with some water. Afterwards, and he'd pick up the phone as Inko would be screaming at him like, Izuku, Izuku, where are you? Izuku. For some reason, lots of people think Inko's a good mother. I don't think that. Like, if you really want to know why I don't think that, it's just like, I feel like she doubts her son way too much. And I get it, you don't want your son to go into danger, but it's just like the level of, oh, my son can't do this, he's not strong enough, or my son really can't do that, he's not capable. I mean, like, Midori's more capable. It's like, I feel like when she said Midori couldn't go, like, I get it. I don't want my child going to a school where he breaks his bones over and over. But then blaming the teachers, I feel like that's just a little selfish at that point. But anyway, let us continue. He'd pick up the phone and Midoriya would say, basically, last night he had a cold. Somebody picked him up, took him to the hospital. He was okay, he spent the night. The cold is gone now. That's what Midoriya would say. Azinko would say, well, okay. Well, I'm off. I'm going to work. You have your key, right? And Midoriya would look around him as he would realize that he remembered when he picked up when his book bag went through his body, all of his stuff was scattered on the beach. So it's under rubble. So Midoriya would say, yeah, I have my key. He'd say, as Inko would say, good. And be safe, Izuku. If you're not feeling good, just wait at the hospital and I can pick you up. As Izuku would say, I'm okay, Mom. Also, it was a Friday, so Midoriya doesn't have school. Midoriya would be walking as people would look at him. Not everybody would look at him, Because obviously, if you got quirks where people are literally frogs, I'm guessing someone made out of water isn't that out of the blue. But it is kind of cool to see someone made out of water. As Midori would walk, he'd walk into like a giant store. As he'd say, "Do you have any chemistry sets?" The man or girl would say, "They're in the back." He'd put down the chemistry sets as the girl would, the man or girl would say, "Are you trying to test on yourself?" And Zuko would say, "What?" As the man would say, "What? Just never seen anybody." The man or woman would say, "I've never seen anybody with a water quirk like yours." Midori would be like, "Yeah, my quirk, thanks." He'd get home. As Midoriya would get home, he would test the water with the water kit, saying it was radioactive. There's one of those machines that can tell the pollution or chemicals in the air, basically. He would basically think, he basically really come to realization that he found radioactive water. Now, I should spend some time on this, but I'm gonna skip 1 month. 1 month later, if you've ever watched Max Steel, you know Max doesn't actually wear clothes. It's more of a hologram. Midori, just like how Sandman can change the color of his sand to make it look like it's clothes, Midoriya is going to be able to do that too. So Midoriya learned that technique some time ago, and Midoriya can now look like his normal self. He can focus. He doesn't like at this point. He's done so much training that he doesn't really have to focus on keeping himself solid. It's just passive. Midoriya has already cleaned up half the beach. I mean, the other half, like basically, it's almost completely clean. This is where we actually start the story. Midoriya is in the classroom as he's just laying his head down. After getting struck by lightning, Midoriya doesn't really, after getting these powers, Midoriya doesn't really find the need to drink water. But every now and then, he does have to eat. It's not really like, basically, his, he has to eat, but he can go like 2-3 days without eating. Think about it like a ghoul. A ghoul can eat one human and be good for like a week. Basically like that. After this, like, the teacher would say Midori wanted to go to UA too. And Midori would say, yeah. And Bako would again slam his hand on Midori's desk. Midori would fall out, sort of almost deforming his clothes, but he would stabilize. He'd say a quirkless boy like you wants to go to UA? Impossible. Afterwards, Midoriya Afterwards, class would end, and Bako would tell Midori to kill himself by jumping off the roof. He'd also throw Midori's notebook out of the window after after exploding it. Midori would walk down and he'd go collect his notebook. As he collected his notebook, Midori would say, "Great, it's all wet." As Midori would be thinking, maybe, he grabbed the notebook. As he'd start to focus, he starts seeing water drops on the notebook go to his hand as he was absorbing the water. Midori would be like, "Whoa, I can absorb water. I always knew I could, but this is really cool." Midori would think to himself, "This is really cool." As Midori doesn't know all his powers, he's gonna have way more powers as this what if goes on, such as being able to just control water, sort of. Now, Midoriya decides to take a shortcut. As Midoriya, Midoriya can Midoriya, never mind. As Midoriya takes the shortcut, like, the sludge villain appears. The sludge villain goes and grabs Midoriya as Midoriya tries to run away. As the sludge villain says he's gonna take Midoriya's body, Midoriya thinks to himself, no, He then destabilizes his form, turning into water. As water, Midoriya would move around. Sylvan would say, "What the heck? You have a slippery quirk, kid. It's gonna be very useful." Now, All Might would have ended up taking a wrong turn because that's how I'm going to do it. All Might would have All Might would end up taking a wrong turn. The Sludge Villain would go for a few more attacks and Midoriya would dodge. Midoriya would destabilize himself. As the Sludge Villain would say, "Just calm down, kid. I'm just gonna kill you." And that instant, something would happen to Midoriya that has never happened before. Alright guys, sorry, I had to check something. But something would happen to Midoriya. Something that had never happened to him before. Well, while him having these powers. After hearing that, some sort of defense would activate in Midoriya. Midoriya's water or skin would start to glow, the same color as the water from what he fell into. When the bottom part of Midoriya's body would start to twist, looking sort of like a tornado. As the bottom part of Midoriya would start to twist, the top half would remain the same. The Sludge Villain would say, "Come here, kid," as he would he'd say, "Come here, kid," as he'd shoot a tentacle. Midoriya would pull his hands up to block. The water, the water, the water from like the water vortex on Midoriya's lower half of his body would shift to his arm, creating a giant shield. The shield would be made out of water. As he'd say, "What the heck?" Midoriya would say, "What is this?" As the shield would disappear, going back into the vortex. He'd say, "You're mine, kid." The Sludge Villain would wrap his hands around Midoriya's throat as Midoriya would like pull out a sword, cutting the Sludge Villain's tentacle. Midoriya would realize what the heck was going on. Before he could really do anything else, All Might would jump up saying, "Texas Smash!" This attack would be so strong it would blow Midoriya out of his physical form and knock out the Sludge Villain. Afterwards, Midoriya would compose himself, saying it was All Might. So as it would be All Might, Midoriya would be so excited, and he would ask All Might to sign his autograph and take a picture with him. Unfortunately, unknowing to Midoriya, he had taken as unknowing to Midoriya, Midoriya had taken a picture with All Might in his water form, basically. Like Midoriya he looked like himself, but he was like made out of water, basically. But it was all good. He just couldn't show anybody. All Might would then jump off as Midoriya would think about jumping onto All Might, but he would hesitate for a moment as All Might would get away. Midoriya would run home, opening his notebook. He keeps a notebook on his powers. He'd open his notebook. He'd basically write down as he would train with this. Wait, the Midoriya would master this sort of fighting style. He learned he could create water out of objects, and this was more of a battle state mode. He'd call it his Bermuda. He's called it his Bermuda attack mode. If you don't understand the Bermuda Triangle, the most dangerous part of the ocean, you get it? I just thought it'd be funny. So he called it his Bermuda attack mode, and he would train with this for some time. Now, the exam would come up. Midoriya would be walking through the gates of UA as he'd still be nervous. He'd say, "I'm so nervous I feel like my heart could jump out my chest." And Midoriya would be like, "Wait a minute, never checked, but do I have a heart? And Midori would think, this is not the time for me to, think about this now. As he'd walk, Baka would be there, and Baka would say, move, Deku, and Midori would basically just move out the way. As Baka would say, why do you even come here? You're just gonna fail anyway. I guess it'll be funny to watch. As Midoriya would be walking, he'd end up tripping. As Midoriya would trip, he'd be saved by Uraraka. Just like in the original, Midoriya would thank Uraraka for saving him and walk away. As Uraraka would look at her fingertips, seeing that they were kind of wet, she would say, what? How are these wet? As she just wiped them off her jacket, making that was weird. Just like in the original Ida, they'd have the same interaction. The exam would basically get ready to start, and Midoriya would be stretching, even though he didn't really have joints. The exam would start, and no one would go out, and then, and then, the President Mike would say, there are no countdowns in real battle, run, run, run. Everyone would go out as Midoriya would start to run. Since Midoriya was technically made out of water, he didn't really have stamina, okay? Midoriya would start to run. He'd see a robot. He'd say, I trained with this. He would jump on top of the robot, turning into his water form. As he'd be his water form, he'd go throughout the entire robot. He would then sort of you get it, like he'd be in the cracks of the robot, as then he would sort of enlarge himself, basically making the robot explode, basically. Midoriya would go into his Bermuda attack mode. In this mode, he would run around as he'd pull out some swords made out of water. These swords would be good enough to... These swords would cut through the robot's metal easily, stabbing it through the machines. I'm stabbing it through the engines. Another good thing about these swords is since they're made out of water and Midori can control them, he can basically control their sharpness, their density. Which means if he's fighting somebody, he can literally make it to the point where if he hits you, the blade will go right through you. But it could still hurt your skin because it's still making contact. Midori would continue this until the 8-minute mark would be up. The 0 Point robot would basically wake up and Midori would decide to run away. As the 0 Point robot would be walking, Midori would hear a noise. Help! He'd see a rock on the ground. Thinking that he had to do something, Midori would look around. He would run towards Uraraka. He wouldn't be that strong, but he would be thinking he had to move the rubble. Using all of his strength, he would finally move the rubble. The 0 Point robot would be there, and Midoriya would be afraid. He's saying, am I gonna die? Am I gonna die? At that instant, the clouds would start to darken up as they'd start raining. Now, the clouds would darken up as they'd start raining. Midoriya would run as he would then throw Uraraka away. He'd say, he'd say, make sure you land safe. He'd say, as he would throw Uraraka. As the robot would basically kind of step on him, splattering him everywhere. Everyone would be a little scared and shocked, as they'd just be looking at the water everywhere. When water would start to move to one point, it was like Midoriya plus the rain was merging together. Midoriya would merge, going into his water form, as he'd make himself physical. He'd say, that kinda hurt, he'd say. As Midoriya would run over to Uraraka saying if she was okay. Uraraka would say, am I okay? You just got stepped on. Midoriya would be like, it's okay, my power protected me. Recovery Girl would come there and she'd heal Uraraka. he would go to heal Midoriya, realizing that he was already healed or he had no flesh wounds at least. They would all be sent home and Midoriya would just go home. And this is where I'm going to leave it off. I plan on posting one video a day, so yeah. Before I continue with what I'm going to say before I sign out, I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good was this what if? Because I'm not going to lie, in the middle of recording it, I kind of have doubts that it's really good. So if it's that bad, I can always redo the 100 subscribers special. Now, if I redo the 100 subscribers special, if I redo this, then the 100 subscriber special I plan on doing is what if Midoriya had. It's either gonna be what if Midoriya had the Sharingan. What if sorry, my nose. It's gonna be either what if Midoriya had the Sharingan. What if Bell was a slime, or my freaking eye. What if Bell was a slime? Oh, freak. Or what if Midoriya had Carnage? I also want to do a what if Asta. Like, I really do want to do what if Asta. Anyway, again, remember to win the giveaway, just basically like, subscribe, comment. To win the what if giveaway, just like, comment. How do I start my videos? Okay, basically, to win the gift card giveaway, comment, like your name, your favorite video, and maybe what video you subscribed on. And again, rate this video on 1 to 10. Okay, bye. Thank you guys for getting me to 100 subscribers again.